From an HIV diagnosis in the 1980s to becoming one of the world's leading voices in hormone optimization, today's guest has spent his life defying the odds and changing the conversation about health. Nelson Vergel was once told he wouldn't live past 30. Now in his 60s, he's thriving thanks in part to testosterone and anabolic therapies that have helped him and countless others regain strength, energy, and quality of life. Today, we uncover the misunderstood world of testosterone, steroids, and hormone optimization. How can these therapies help people beyond bodybuilding? Or are they truly dangerous? Or just stigmatized? Let's find out. I just wanted to jump on here with an exciting announcement. I am hosting the second ever Forever Strong Summit, April 26th, 27th in Houston, Texas, 2025. There's going to be 2 days. The VIP day on April 26th, you will learn from former Navy SEALs, from former Secret Service, from individuals that you do not want to miss. Myself, my inner tribe will be there to support you to learn everything from muscle health to science to nutrition. You don't have to be an expert. You don't even have to have a background. All you have to have is a will to win and stay strong. I will put a link in the show notes below. Please go to my website, drgabriellelyon.com. We sold out last year, and I would hate for you to miss this opportunity. So if you're waiting for a sign, if you're thinking you need to change something up and you need community, friends, we've got you covered. Nelson Vergel, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
You are a very unique guest, and I want to share a little bit about your background and one of your perspectives, which you have many, in terms of anabolic steroids, wasting syndrome, the future of medicine. When we think about body composition, you are uniquely positioned to have an opinion on this. And I want to hear it from you, but in the mid-'80s, you learned you were HIV positive.
Yeah.
At the time, can you share what that landscape was like?
Oh, it was horrible. Even remembering those days, I tried to block them, but I'm going to talk about it today. Yeah, I got here to the States from Venezuela in '84. I met somebody that I wanted to move in with and came to the master's degree. And a year later, less than a year later, he tested behind my back, because back then the test use had come out that year, 85, 84.
The HIV test.
HIV test. Yeah, we didn't have a test before. People were speculating that gay men were getting it through drug use and other stuff. They didn't really think it was a virus until 84, 85, where the test actually was discovered. And back then, nobody in my community wanted to get tested because there were no treatments. So why be told that you're gonna die and have nothing to do about it, So I didn't want to get tested, but my partner behind my back did get tested. So he told me he was positive, and I was sure I was positive. So here in Houston, we only had a little place called the Montrose Clinic. There was a little trailer that they had set up for HIV, and went there to get tested. And obviously, I was tested and positive. And that was within a year that I had come to this country, to try to get the American dream too,
And you're training as a chemical engineer.
I was a chemical engineer already. I just came here for an MBA and for more studies. Actually moving here because I lived in Venezuela. I went to school in Canada, in Montreal, but went to work for the oil business in Venezuela. But I knew it wasn't for me. So anyway, so that kind of felt like I was, hit in the face with all my dreams. I was.
How old were you?
24 years of age, so it's very hard. But I cried for like 4 days, I remember. But something told me, it's like, don't give up, just research. And there was nothing. There was no newsletters, no internet, no fax machines. So that was the hardest part, trying to find information. And I saw a notice at the clinic I got tested at Montrose Clinic. Now there's a big clinic now. But anyways, that the CDC was looking for volunteers to be trained as counselors people that actually gave results. So that's how the first training I got from the CDC. So that's how I know, there are trainings out there that I can get information from.
At the time, when an individual in the 80s, when they were diagnosed with HIV, was there a projection for how long someone was going to live, and what would they die of?
Most people would drop within a year, I've been told, that they're HIV positive. And most people would die of wasting syndrome. You'll see basically, and you see them in the grocery stores, in Montrose especially. People really skinny, like the concentration camp victims. Something else that was obvious is people would get spots on their face, KS, which is another virus.
Kaposi sarcoma.
Kaposi sarcoma, which is another virus that attacks you when your immune system is depleted. So, all my friends have started to drop like that. We were going to memorial services every weekend. The whole Montrose was well known back then for being like a gay community, gay neighborhood. It's no longer the case, but memorial services every weekend. When somebody would not call you back, you would assume they were dying. And it was horrible. Hospitals didn't want to treat us. The ones that did, they have to put masks and suits. People were being kicked out of their families. It was a horrible nightmare, and after 50 years, 45 years, people are forgetting about it.
People are forgetting about it now.
Yeah.
I want to paint the picture for the listener or the viewer that in the mid 80s, HIV/AIDS was devastating to a community of people, to the individual, to the family. The treatment was unknown. People were dying of wasting syndrome, skeletal, muscle, and systemic wasting. The individuals are also getting lesions on their face, Kaposi sarcoma. Fast forward to now. How many people, or how deadly is HIV now?
Not deadly at all. It's almost like having diabetes. You can control it very well. There are over 18 treatments. I'm a survivor, 42, 43 years. But it took a lot of work. We were without treatment since 1996. I found out in 1985. So
wow,
that time we were without treatment.
You went from, so that's what, 10, almost 10 years?
Yeah,
1995,
all of us were in the closet at work. Mm-hmm. So we were afraid to be showing the symptoms of wasting or facial wasting, weight loss, or KS. So I was horrified. I was obsessed.
RKS? What is that?
KS.
KS.
Kaposi sarcoma.
Kaposi sarcoma,
so
yeah.
I had, engineering jobs at Shell, different oil companies that I actually finally found a job. And I couldn't disclose. I was gay or HIV positive. But I was horrified every day looking at myself in the mirror if I was going to show symptoms or wasting. I started losing weight, and that's when I realized, oh my God, I'm next. So
it's intense.
Intense. I was saved. My life was saved when I was transferred by Shell to LA, where bodybuilding is a culture. And that's where I found out in support groups, there were two guys that came in. We were all skinny, losing weight. I had lost already 12 pounds. And these two guys were pumped and looked great.
Did they have HIV?
They have HIV. We had support groups. One was run by Marion Williamson. Anyways, and I went to talk
Marion
to
Williamson.
Marion Williamson.
Yeah, it's no small name.
Marion Williamson
She
was our guide, our coach.
Interesting.
She were teaching us not to feel sorry for ourselves, that we were not victims, we can die with dignity. That's how I learned from her. Yeah, Marion is. And she's from Houston, too.
She is. I did not know that.
Anyway, so I went to talk to them. I said, listen, you guys are doing something. I really want to know what you're doing. And they taught me about nandrolone and oxandrolone and testosterone. Even went with me to Mexico to get some. And that's how I reversed 35 pounds.
This is exactly why I want, well, number one, you and I are friends. We have a common friend in common, Sean Norian, who is the founder and owner of the largest compounding pharmacy in the world. Shout out to Empower Pharmacy. But what you are saying is heavy, and it is deep, and it is complex. Mm-hmm. in the way that you were given a diagnosis that we knew was going to cause severe wasting and death.
Mm-hmm.
You've lost a ton of people.
Mm-hmm.
The medical community was not able to support the treatment. It was largely unknown. People didn't even know it was happening. Mm-hmm. You go to LA, all of a sudden and I'm paraphrasing, mm-hmm. you see large, buff bodybuilders, the mm-hmm. era probably of Arnold Schwarzenegger-esque mm-hmm. in Venice. And these are individuals that were utilizing not FDA-approved treatments for HIV to build muscle and actually survive.
Yes. Yes, I embrace that. Bodybuilding saved my life. Bodybuilders saved my life. So if it wasn't for them, and they died eventually of other things because some of us were able to gain enough lean body mass. And I want to talk about lean body mass and the difference. But anyways, we also had a really good researcher that found out that once we lost a third of our lean body mass, you would die. No matter what.
Cancer, cachexia,
cancer,
that's what we see.
HIV,
yeah?
anything. A lot of us have lost our, parents or grandparents, and that's usually what happens at the end of mm-hmm. that stage. So that's when we realized in the whole community realized that having muscle meant survival, or at least buying time. Obviously, it was not a cure, but I wanted to buy time because I knew, research was started. ACT was already being studied, which ended up being a toxic drug anyways, that killed us faster. So I knew time was an essence to at least buy some time. So I did. I gained 35 pounds. I was like woken up. People at work would say, wow, my God, you're working out. You look so great. They were already asking me. I remember I was terrified. You look tired before. Are you sleeping well? So that's when, and then they switched to, oh my God, I want to know what you're doing. And that really gave me the will to live, like I really did. And I wanted to preach. I just wanted everybody in
We had nothing to lose. You're going to die.
Yeah, I wanted everybody to know about it. All the doctors, even though obviously there's stigma. Not only HIV has a stigma, being gay has a stigma, and anabolic steroids have a stigma. So I had to deal with 3 stigmas to get over that. But I was successful, even without the internet, even without, without any ways to actually spread the information nationwide. What saved me was the invention of a fax machine. When the fax machine came, I was unstoppable. Because I faxed every doctor that I could in the United States about my program. I actually did a summary.
And is it still, is this the non-for-profit, the program for wellness restoration?
Yeah, it was called the Power Program.
Power Program.
And doctors jumped on it because doctors were horrified how fast their patients were dying. And they embraced it.
And this was the strategies for reversing wasting with the use of FDA-approved anabolic steroids for men and women.
Yeah.
There is a huge stigma. And I just want to say that I believe we are going to look back at obesity and say obesity is similar to how HIV has been able to be treated. That maybe there is a way in which we can manage it, especially with the use of GLP-1s. Mm-hmm. It potentially, obesity might look very similar to how we have largely stopped talking about HIV.
I hope so, and there's hope for that.
There is hope with the use of GLP-1s and this anabolic steroid use that is FDA approved. Now the question is, and what I'd love to hear from you is, if you could paint the picture of what it was like in terms of anabolic use, where were the stigmas? Where do you think that they were born? Why was it that up until a certain point, a patient could go to the doctor and say, you know what, I want to have stronger muscles, probably be able to be prescribed an anabolic, versus then sports happen, Congress, all these other things, and then shut it down, and really has now, what I believe, changed the trajectory of aging for everybody because of this heavy stigma. And I'm talking about beyond hormone replacement.
Yeah, that's a good question. Most of these molecules, most of these products were developed 50 years ago. So they're old. We have good data on nandrolone, and people don't know. People say FDA approved. Yeah, we have 4 FDA approved anabolic agents. I like to call them androgens because that's what they are.
I think that's a much better term. It also reduces our lexicon of speaking about it, also reduces the stigma.
Of course. So, they were prescribed for anemia, for different conditions, even for frailty related to aging back in the 70s, 80s, until the Anabolic Steroid Act was enacted, mostly to combat the use of anabolics in sports, in baseball, as we know, and all the other stuff. And that really kind of shut the door to all the research. There's a lot of, and we can talk about
80s,
it. It completely, unless in HIV, we continue with the research. I was able to belong to join committees at the NIH, the National Institute of Health, part of the FDA. That's a long story. And I was able to advocate with a bunch of my activist friends. I became an activist for federally funded studies on nandrolone, oxandrolone, testosterone, exercise in HIV-positive men and women.
Nandrolone, oxandrolone, testosterone.
Oxymetholone is another one, but that's one we only studied once because it does have some liver toxicity issues.
Is that an oral agent?
Oral agent. There are three orals, oxymetholone, oxandrolone, stanozolone, those are orals, the three of them, sorry. And nandrolone is injectable. And testosterone. Testosterone is an anabolic steroid also. Obviously, less stigma about testosterone nowadays, definitely changed. But that really changed everything, the Anabolic Steroid Control Act, which was, just based on not having people cheat in sports. I always say the definition of cheating, although there's a new movement of having Olympics and a different
the enhanced games.
The enhanced games. You heard about that.
I've heard about
but
it.
But anyways, that really was. But we continued in HIV. Obviously, we had the risk to benefit ratio was different for people with HIV
because they were going to die as opposed to a anemic patient, or because it was used. If you look at some of the studies, nandrolone was used for postmenopausal women and osteoporosis.
Yeah, and breast cancer. Metastasized advanced breast cancer.
Did you said that you'd become an activist. What does an activist do, and what is what's the role of an activist in terms of what they are hoping for and what the outcome would be?
Yeah, activists, at least in HIV, and now we have HIV cure activists. I'm part of that world too, because now we're proceeding to a cure. But anyways, activists will really get together, strategize about strategy on how we're going to get a treatment approved or access approved, and we really show up to FDA meetings.
I've been using Element for years and has really changed the game of electrolytes. It has sodium, magnesium, and potassium, all minerals the body requires. Sometimes we don't need more caffeine for energy, but what we need are water and electrolytes. I use Element daily, often in iced tea or just straight water between workouts, or sip on it throughout the day to get more fluids. Pretty sure we could all drink more. Not that kind of drink. Element is a zero sugar electrolyte drink mix and sparkling electrolyte water made from a growing body of research. Each stick packs a meaningful dose of electrolytes free of sugar, artificial colors, and other weird ingredients. Element is formulated for anyone on a mission to restore health through hydration, and it is perfectly suited for athletes, those who are fasting. Maybe you're on a protein-forward diet. If you are, we are friends. Low carb, keto, whole food, you name it. Get your free Element sample pack with any purchase. Go to drinklmnt.com/Dr. Lyon and also try the new Element Sparkling, a bold 16-ounce can of sparkling electrolyte water. Cherry lime is my favorite. That's drinklmnt.com/Dr. Lyon. Is anyone able to go to an FDA meeting?
Almost every product has a comment section or a comment period where the public is, but most people don't know about it. The public's invited to either send emails. Well, now we have the internet. Back then we had to show
faxes.
up. Or faxes. We have to show up now. But that's what we did. We show up to all the meetings, and some people were afraid of us because ACT UP used to shut down traffic in New York. ACT UP was a main activist group in HIV. ACT, they actually chained themselves to Wall Street to decrease the price of ACT. I mean, the New Yorkers and the San Francisco activists were the most active. I was in Houston, Texas, doing all this work with the medical use of anabolics for men and women. And people also have this stigma that only men use it, and for clinical use of steroids. I also did some work with oncologists here in Houston that were more open-minded to treating wasting in cancer cachexia too. So.
And, wasting itself is a disease, and again, a disease state or a highly catabolic state. And then sarcopenia, which is the decrease in muscle mass and function, finally got an ICD-10 code in, do you know when? 2016.
Yeah.
Finally got a diagnosis.
But no indication, though. No product being indicated yet.
Why is that?
Don't know why. Tell me.
But it seems as if we have treatment for low muscle mass.
Yeah, oxandrolone, nandrolone are perfectly, especially oxandrolone, because it can be used really in women, men, and children, has been studied in pediatrics too, safely.
And this is a very complicated topic that we are discussing, not just from a medical perspective, right? This is deep stigma about this idea of anabolic agents, when they should be used, when they shouldn't, who should be able to use it and who shouldn't. And where we're at is we are entering a new epidemic. And that epidemic is going to be trading obesity for an epidemic of sarcopenia and osteoporosis from what I believe like we've never seen before.
I agree. The loss of lean body mass happens more so with GLP-1s, and even though they're great, I mean, they're a miracle.
They are amazing, yes.
There should be adjunct therapies. Nandrolone, androgens could be adjunct therapies to GLP-1s.
And
perfectly.
I agree with you. And I think one of the things that I've found so fascinating about you is that if we were to take a step back and we look at the Houston Buyers Club. So there's the Dallas Buyers Club that everyone knows about, but there's also a Houston's Buyers Club. And one of the things that is just spectacular, and I do think that you should write a book on your story, is that you informed physicians from a group of individuals that had nothing to lose because they were going to die to survive, and started working with doctors and educating doctors on anabolic agents, which now fast forward to urologists and andrology, really the only specialty that I think is doing it right and well and forward thinking. So tell me, when you began that.
Mm-hmm. But think about it. I mean, there's this epidemic that kills you. You're in your 20s. Most of us were very young. Yeah, most activists were in our 20s. We had energy. We knew we were going to die. We had nothing to lose. The perfect combination for an activist movement, that we probably haven't had since then. So we organized, and we had no internet, and we organized. And some of us became specialized. I mean, my specialty was wasting and metabolic syndromes. Like, we had metabolic issues too. Some other people would, specialize on other, like, mostly women's issues, health issues. So we were lay people. I was an engineer. Some of us, had medical, clinical backgrounds, but most people weren't. So we had to educate ourselves. I had to go to a library and read everything about anabolic steroids and androgens, because there was a lot of research. There's a lot of research that was done in the 40s, 50s, 60s. And then I had to translate that and make sure that I would tell the doctors. Doctors were desperate. Doctors treating HIV were desperate. Patients were dying. They were losing their, people. So they completely right away took on.
Did you have resistance from physicians? So a physician would say, okay, well, you're a chemical engineer, but this is lay public. How are you gonna tell us?
No, there was no resistance, because these were FDA approved products.
And can you explain? Can you mention?
They're Schedule 3. Okay, so you have to have a DEA number when a doctor prescribes it. They have to write a DEA number. It's like testosterone. Testosterone is a Schedule 3 by the DEA. So anabolics like nandrolone is like testosterone. It's really, all these molecules are very closely related to testosterone. They were modified by researchers to slow down the liver metabolism so they could stay longer in the body, right? So they're you look at the molecules, they're very close. So they're Schedule 3. They're prescribable. You're not breaking the law by prescribing them. You can prescribe them off-label, and there are many. We can talk about the off-label uses. And in HIV, obviously, doctors didn't care because they knew anything that worked. And it worked quickly. These things work. And within a month, people are gaining weight, strength, energy, mood. This is not just about muscle. And we know that increasing muscle mass increases, longevity and survival. So it was the perfect storm. It really was. I never had a pushback. I never had a problem with the government. Actually, it was welcoming because it was a number 2 cause of AIDS, death. The first one was PCP pneumonia. It's a pneumonia fungus that would take over our lungs. But this was a number 2. So this was a solution to that problem. And then obviously in 96, 97, we had the protease inhibitors came in, better drugs came in. They had horrible side effects, but at least our viral load, our HIV, was able to be undetectable. And that really made a big difference. So most of us bought at least 5 to 6 years. And many of my friends died before 94. So I'm just lucky. I was in the right place. I was curious. I was fearless. So it's not like, I don't know if I would do this again because their circumstances was a perfect storm. Doctors were, they were welcoming this information. I was sending faxes. They would call me. The NIH was welcoming. Yes, they wanted us to take Megace, which was a progestin product. For hunger,
yeah.
But Megace only increases fat mass, not lean body mass. They wanted us to take Marinol. We had basically THC, THC approved.
To try to eat, but none of that did anything for muscle.
No.
When you discovered this change that these bodybuilders were using anabolics to save lives, how was it accessible? So what is this idea of the Houston Buyers Club?
Oh, the Houston Buyers Club we were looking for treatments for HIV. There was nothing. Obviously, ACT actually was found to be killing us faster. There were ACT studies. I was in the study. Thank God I found out when they opened the label that I was on placebo because I would be dead. I was depressed. Oh my God, I'm on placebo.
And what was the AZT?
ACT is a nucleoside reverse transcriptase. It's a inhibitor that was used in cancer back in the 50s. And it has HIV activity. It's just that the toxicity is to the mitochondria.
Do they use that anymore at all?
No, it's banned from HIV. It was banned in 2002 or something like that. The mitochondria would destroy our mitochondria. Imagine that. But, HIV would actually go down. So anyways, I was on placebo, so I survived also because I was in that study. My partner was on the treatment arm. He died faster.
Ugh.
So I had 3 boyfriends die. So you have to bury all those people too. So it's a lot of, sometimes, I think it was luck, but sometimes being in the right place, right time. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's, I think, being curious and not giving up, even without internet. Sometimes the power of community really saves everything. I don't think we're going to, I hope, I pray, we never have another thing like that in this world, Even, obviously COVID kind of woke us up too. I was like, oh no, not another one, right? We got, we have PTSD, most of us.
I'm sure.
And then monkeypox, oh my God, not again. So every time something comes up, all of us are triggered, the ones that are still alive.
And the reason that the Buyers Club happened was that, from what I understand, physicians were not providing anabolics, and they had to. Is that true? That individuals had to go somewhere?
No, the anabolics. A lot of people went to Mexico and get it there because Mexico you can get it without a prescription. Most of them, but the Buyers Club was mostly related to finding treatments for HIV.
So not anabolics.
No, because anabolics are FDA approved. Anabolics are available by prescription. So all HIV doctors and people really, there were some doctors, non-infectious disease, some family doctors, they specialized on HIV, believe it or not. Their fear actually decreased in the early 90s. My doctor, I've been with him for years too, and he embraced this. They became experts. They're experts on androgens. HIV doctors are, especially.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Now?
Yeah. The ones that are still in practice, yeah, they're experts. They learned 30 years of actually giving these compounds to men and women. So the Buyers Club, basically, we were importing stuff from Israel, from Mexico, from South America, from Germany, products that had some data on being immune boosters, herbal products from Asia. And yeah, we had support groups where we would do enemas with Chinese herbal tea that was supposed to increase your immune system. So that's where the Buyers Club came in as a main source of finding alternatives or treatments for a virus that we didn't have treatments for. And the Dallas Buyers Club, which they made a movie of, but the Houston Buyers Club was first.
Houston, and people don't know that. People don't know.
Not.
I mean, before I moved here, I didn't know that there was a Houston Buyers Club. When we think about lean body mass, I would love for you to share, again, also for people listening, you're not a physician, but what you have in spades is experience, and you have a group of 40, how many thousand?
42,000 on excelmail.com, but Facebook, I have groups also.
And you have been following these groups that are using, I don't want even to say anabolics, but the whole spectrum of body composition for how many years?
35, 40.
I mean, that's unbelievable.
Well,
that's like a very large longitudinal study.
Yes, I would think open label. Yeah, I would. I wish I had a PhD student gathering my data because I have a lot of data. But yeah, there's a women's group on Facebook that I have over 28,000 women from all over the world talking about hormones and body composition, quality. Facebook group, the testosterone replacement discussion group, has over 32,000 men all over the world. Excel Mail, also international, 45,000.
And we'll link everything so people can find it.
Yeah. And I learn every day. I do. I learn by just reading what the people are posting.
Which is so interesting. We just have to pause and understand that there is this idea that and I believe as a physician, as our mutual friend, Dr. Lipschultz and Mohit Khera, we believe in evidence-based practices.
Of course.
And there is a moment where, evidence-based practices end and experience begins. And this is what we're hearing from patients and people. And that really can then serve to inform what is potentially optimal, which is kind of counterintuitive to the landscape of medicine.
Of course. I think every physician should have an assistant that is present online and is gathering field information from online, because it's so easy now. It's so easy to gather, because it's one thing what you read on the label of a product by the FDA, or the pharmaceutical person or a rep that comes into your office. They just give you that packaged info that they label, and they cannot even speak off label.
And it's challenging. And off label is...
Off label, it's, obviously. So the only way to learn off label uses is gathering information from the field, from patients. And who has time for that? Well, doctors don't have time, obviously.
Right.
So I really believe one day in near future, we will have specialists that only gather information of offline uses online, because it's so easy now.
And that would be fascinating. Can you give me some of the biggest myths that you've seen over the 3 decades of use of anabolics that people have that would potentially create a roadblock for... You have a 45-year-old woman at home saying, I have low muscle mass, I've tried everything, whatever it is, I am interested in anabolic use, or whatever it is, or even hormones, but I'm afraid.
First, a stigmatized thing that is not true is that hormones will make you aggressive. Hormones will kill your liver. Hormones will make you moody. Hormones in men, will increase your prostate cancer risk. Hormones in women will increase your breast cancer risk. mostly the aggressiveness, and that's how they sold the Anabolic Controls Steroid Control Act.
Really?
Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
Yeah, when you say anabolic steroids, back then,
everybody still freaks out.
Everybody says, well, he's a cheater, and he's probably abusing his wife or his girlfriend or his partner. They do. It's associated with behavioral issues, with anger, which is most people on testosterone or any of these products actually feel better.
I know.
Their mood is better. The quality of life is better. They relate to people better. So that's a stigma and a barrier to access.
As a mom of 2 kids, I've always had major concerns with what we cook on and how we store our food. I felt a ton of relief when I started using Our Place. When I became aware of the risks associated with what we cook our food in, I immediately looked for options. And that is how I found one of the sponsors of this show, which is Our Place. And I'm so grateful to them. Most cookware and appliances are made with forever chemicals. Their products are made without, that's Our Place, are made without PFAS and Teflon. In comparison, most of today's non-stick pans contain PFAS, this forever chemical which the EU plans to prohibit by this year. Most cookware brands continue to use these chemicals due to their low cost. Well, I'm not paying for it with my kids. And that's why Our Place came out with non-toxic appliances that are changing the game. Upgrade to Our Place today and say goodbye to forever chemicals in your kitchen. Go to FromOurPlace.com and enter my code Dr. Lyon at checkout to receive 10% off. That's FromOurPlace.com, code Dr. Lyon, and Our Place offers a 100-day trial with free shipping and returns. I will tell you what, this is, as much as I love every product that I talk about, from a fundamental health perspective, this is one that I strongly and deeply encourage you to invest in, because it is what we feed our children with. It is what we are eating with daily. And these chemicals that are these forever chemicals, I have huge concern. So check out Our Place. I think you'll be incredibly happy and relieved.
I would like to rebrand them, rename them, because it's really, you cannot fight against a term that has been stigmatized for so long.
I know.
So androgens really is a word that it really should summarize.
We'll call them androgens instead of anabolic steroids. That's what I'd like to call them,
androgens, yeah.
Okay.
Anabolic agents, but androgens. And there's use in women. There's oxandrolone, for instance.
Yeah, let's break down the anabolic agents.
Yeah.
The myths are basically, if I were to ask you, in appropriate doses, are anabolic agents dangerous?
Inappropriate doses. And we can discuss what that means also. Because,
Exactly.
bodybuilders, and thank God for bodybuilders, they saved my life, so I'm not criticizing. Bodybuilders tend to use very high doses, right. And they tend to stack a few compounds together because, there's some synergy.
As more as some.
Yeah. But there are side effects like, high hematocrit, which increases viscosity in the blood, and cardiovascular issues come around. There's other issues, high blood pressure, renal issues that happen at high doses. But physiologic doses, lower doses.
Normal dose, yeah.
Increase lean body mass, improve mood, that do not increase red blood cells as much. Mm-hmm. Anabolics and testosterone, which is testosterone is anabolic, they have one main side effect, is they're hemopoietic agents, meaning they increase the production of red blood cells in the bone marrow. And that's a good thing for people with anemia, right? Because anemia...
It's FDA approved
for anemia. But if you, depending on the dose, you go up too high on the red blood cells, and that makes the blood thicker and thicker, and the viscosity goes up. And the heart is a pump. And pump, they don't like viscous, thick liquids. So there is a concern about cardiovascular. But if you, disease or risk, so you keep the dose, like nandrolone, for instance, 100 milligrams a week. They're always used with testosterone. These molecules are so closely related to testosterone.
And we should talk about nandrolone in more detail because I've only mentioned it on the show. I was actually waiting to have you on. And we've had Dr. Mohit on. We've had Abe Morgenthaler on as well. And I wanted to save the anabolic agent discussion for you.
Okay, we'll be here for a while.
Tell me about nandrolone.
Yeah, nandrolone is a beautiful molecule. It's an injectable. Has no effect on liver enzymes. Nandrolone doesn't really. A small decrease on HDL at 100 milligrams or so a week for men. Women can use 25 milligrams a week with no virilization. Virilization of women can show up if you do higher doses of anabolics, like peach fuzz, growth hair here, deepening of the voice. The worst side effect will be clitoral enlargement, amenorrhea, issues with menstruation. But at lower doses, you don't see those issues.
And before you continue, I just want to put this in perspective for people. Typically, nandrolone is given at 50% the dose of testosterone or less.
Yeah, and I was going to get to that.
Yeah.
The anabolics basically are so closely related to testosterone that the body doesn't know the difference. And they tend to shut down your own testosterone production. Men and women. Women produce testosterone too. And that's not a good thing long term because sex drive decreases, erectile function, dysfunction can occur. So they should always use as an adjunct therapy with testosterone. So testosterone, a ratio of 1-to-1. Some people use it 2-to-1 testosterone to nandrolone, or oxandrolone. Oxandrolone is an oral.
Yeah, we should. Yeah.
Let's not jump to oxandrolone.
Yeah, we're not jumping.
So sorry.
Let's.
I'm a little too eager to talk about all the products.
Well, definitely, yes. For sure, nandrolone, because people need to know that it is not some crazy compound. It's FDA approved. It can be used off-label. It can be used off-label safely. And I would love for you to talk about the safety profile. And again, how we think about dosing for men and women and potential indications.
Mm-hmm. Right now, let's talk about what is used right now. How the landscape of the use of nandrolone, decanoate, used to be called decadurabolin. The brand name, that's not longer the case.
Deca, which the bros called Deca.
Yeah. But now that's gone. The pharmaceutical brand is no longer available, only compounded nandrolone made by compounding pharmacies. And Empower Pharmacy is one of the largest, and it's here in Houston. Very lucky to be in Houston. The best urologists and the best you're in here. So we're a lucky city here when it comes to androgens. But anyways, nandrolone shuts down, like oxandrolone and all the others, your own testosterone production. So it's good to bring testosterone in at the same time. And that's a mistake that some bodybuilders have done in the past, and they experience, obviously, sexual dysfunction because of that. Right now, it's being used mostly by urologists, some andrologists. All anabolics have this function that they decrease sex hormone binding globulin. It's this hormone that actually attaches to hormones and deactivates them. Basically, doesn't allow them to do the biological. Why? Because it's a way for the body to protect itself from large amounts of hormones, Mm-hmm. So sex hormone binding globulin is a good thing. People think it's a bad. The body doesn't produce anything that it doesn't need. But anabolics decrease sex hormone binding globulin and free up more hormones. So when you use nandrolone and testosterone, you have higher free testosterone, which is really being correlated to all the good things about testosterone. Free testosterone, not total. Some people may have good total testosterone, but very low free testosterone. And they have symptoms of low testosterone, low mood, low sex drive, erectile dysfunction, just not coping very well with stress. That's where I tell people that's the number one symptom of having low testosterone. And anabolics can actually improve free testosterone. So I'm seeing it more used for that purpose, to free up testosterone.
What about estrogens and other hormones?
I'm one of the few people online that have read all the papers on estrogen in men. Let's talk about estrogen in men and the importance of men and estrogen. Testosterone converts into estrogen, or estradiol, only 0.4%, a tiny amount, mm-hmm. because the body needs it to balance the effects of testosterone. Estrogen, is an enhancer of the effects of testosterone. So many doctors are blocking estrogen in men
with anastrozole.
Mm-hmm. Which is an old breast cancer drug. And that's actually counterproductive. And I'm probably one of a few people, there are a few of us on the internet now talking about it. And there are many papers that show that actually men with higher estrogen have better sexual libido and sexual function. So most doctors are making that mistake about estrogen. Estrogen in women, we know. I mean, it's great for everything. Benefits on mood, sex drive, bone density, you name it. And obviously in menopause, that's when things change a little. So testosterone can and is a source of estradiol, estrogen, aromatization in fat cells, in the liver. A lot of these conversions happen in the liver. Testosterone and anabolics also can convert into DHT, dihydrotestosterone, excuse me, which is a very good, strong androgen. That also improves sexual function, but it can be associated with hair loss or acne and maybe prostatic hyperplasia.
For men and women.
For men and women. And obviously the prostatic effects.
Not for men.
But
not for women. That would be
But
unusual.
blocking DHT, and some men are doing that. They're taking finasteride for hair loss.
We do not recommend finasteride at all.
It can actually kill your sex drive, decrease your mood, have long-lasting effects. I call it finasteride syndrome.
Yes.
So blocking DHT, blocking estradiol is really counterproductive. These are metabolites of testosterone. They're friends of testosterone. They're helping testosterone, and they're not enemies. I mean, that's the thing about, I don't know why. Some people think that there's some bad hormones and some good hormones. In fact, all hormones were made by evolution for a good reason, right? To balance each other.
And also, testosterone is not just a male hormone.
No. And estrogen is not only a female hormone.
Exactly.
So that's another one of those misconceptions. And some doctors are not educating themselves, and they're blocking either one of those two metabolites.
Yeah.
I don't know how I got digressing
into
this. I'm sorry.
We're talking about
nandrolone.
No. So basically, we're talking about why someone would use a anabolic agent, and an anabolic agent specifically, for example, nandrolone. And one of the things that all anabolic agents do will also lower sex hormone binding globulin. And that's how you got on the topic of the rest, because, and I will say from a clinical perspective, we like to see estrogen, depending on the lab, between 30 and 50 in men. We like to see robust estrogen levels in women. Women that have been on birth control will have high sex hormone binding globulins along with copper. And this tends to be, the sex hormone binding globulin that increases tends to be irreversible. But we do see with use of low dose anabolics or other various agents that you can lower sex hormone binding globulin, thus making hormones available to the body.
Great point. That what I was going to say also about uses of nandrolone, right? Off-label uses, urology especially. There are posters and emerging data on joint pain reduction. Here in Houston, actually, the Baylor group, Liv Schultz and all, they actually have some good data, observational and self-reported, on the decrease in pain in men with joint pain.
And is it fair to say it would also affect women, lower joint pain in women?
There's no reason to believe that it's not, right?
This episode is brought to you by Timeline. Remember, we set standards, not goals. And one of the core standards that we should all set is having healthy muscle. And that starts with robust mitochondria. There are various ways to get healthy muscle. That includes an amazing resistance training program. It includes dietary protein. And if I were to pick one supplement for muscle health and mitochondria, that would be MitoPure. It's a precise dose of a postbiotic urolithin A, and it works by promoting essential cellular cleanup. And this process clears out old dysfunctional mitochondria. I would make a mother-in-law joke, but I'm not going to. And Timeline has done an incredible job at leading the way from a science perspective to bring you the only clinically backed urolithin A on the market. And I will tell you what, I've been using urolithin A for years. My husband uses it. My friends use it. And here's why. We have better energy. We recover faster. I feel like I have more endurance, and it really helps me meet my physical standards. And I know that it will help you too. And by the way, there is more and more research coming out on urolithin A. So go to timeline.com/Dr. Lyon, and you will get 10% off your order. That's timeline.com/Dr. Lyon, 10% off your order. I think that this is an extraordinary product. And I think that wherever you are on your training muscle journey, that it's going to benefit you.
Obviously, the data is being derived from men.
And fair
unfortunately.
That's because the Lipschultz group is, they do see, Lipschultz's group primarily sees men, but the other providers there also do see women. But the large database, I think, is men.
Yeah, and there's good results. I mean, guys on Excel Mail, I've used it for joint pain. I work out, anytime you work out and you get into either knee pain or shoulder pain, and that's when we freak out. Nandrolone actually improves, and we don't know the mechanism.
I was going to ask you, do we know them? And do we also know the dose? Because it would be used off-label. Off-label means, it doesn't mean that it hasn't been proven safe. Off-label means that when FDA approval goes through for a indication, for example, this is FDA approved to treat anemia, that once the FDA is approved, like the FDA approval, you can use it then off-label to treat various other indications. It doesn't mean that it is shady or unsafe. I do believe that that's important to
that's very important. And I'm glad because we haven't really described what off-label is. We're talking about off-label. Yeah, off-label is actually clinical use. I mean, and many posters and abstracts are written and published on off-label uses. Okay, nandrolone has a few off-label uses. There's some data on multiple sclerosis, COPD.
How do we know? Is it a muscular effect? Or?
A muscular effect. COPD, people with COPD severe, they tend to lose muscle mass also. They're expending all this extra energy with their lung disease and all these problems. So it's good data on that. As I said, good data on nandrolone use in advanced breast cancer.
For wasting? Is that way?
And no, compared to tamoxifen, actually, there's comparable data.
Tell me.
I was really shocked. I discovered this paper on like 6 months ago, and it was really a paper that was generated in the late 80s. Comparing tamoxifen with nandrolone, they have the same kind of survival rates, the same longevity. Obviously, tamoxifen, nandrolone, you have to modulate the masculinizing effect, so you have to be careful with the dose. But it had and the quality of life was better than on tamoxifen. So that's what's shocking, because I do have some family members and friends that have gone through pretty bad cases of breast cancer. So COPD, multiple sclerosis, there's some good pilot data on nandrolone. Go on and on. I mean, like joint disease, HIV, obviously, cachexia. They have done some studies on cancer. Oncologists are afraid of androgens. They're really afraid. And so there's some androgen-dependent cancers that you would try to avoid the use of anabolics, but there's many that are not. So,
where do you think there'll be a reemergence of the anabolic agent use with the increase in GLP-1s?
Nobody's doing that study. That's why I'm surprised. Nobody's doing this. I mean, I would love to see a study of nandrolone use with GLPs. They're both injectables, or oxandrolone and GLP-1s, and do DEXA scannings, to measure body composition and baseline.
Are we sure no one's doing those studies?
I
haven't seen any.
I've checked. I went to clinicaltrials.gov, and not everything is posted there, but most of it. No, nobody. And it's time, because we know that GLP-1s, semaglutide, decreases lean body mass. Fat mass decreases too, but lean body mass decreases substantially. So how can we preserve lean body mass while fat mass goes down? That's a trick that we should actually, be doing right now. So no, we have nobody, and hopefully somebody that listens to the podcast can pick that up. But that would be a beautiful study to do in men and women. Low dose nandrolone with testosterone. Obviously, you have to do it with that.
What would be considered too high a dose of nandrolone? From, again, you've seen
anything above 150 milligrams a week. On nandrolone, and women anything above maybe 80 milligrams, 50 to 80.
And that would be really high.
Really high. You can do 25 with a testosterone for women, low dose too, and men 100 milligrams of testosterone with 50 milligrams of nandrolone. That would be safe, low dose. And GLP-1s, obviously, once a week. I think that will make a lot of sense. I don't know any other androgens or anabolic, any other medical approaches to increasing lean mass in people taking semaglutide or tirzepatide. I just do not know. I'm thinking very strongly about it.
And I haven't seen it yet.
Products are already FDA approved. We know how to modulate side effects. It makes sense.
And I would encourage people who are listening to this, again, we're not giving medical advice. The goal is to educate. I would suggest individuals dive into the literature and look for themselves about nandrolone use. There are randomized controlled trials for osteoporosis, for anemia. There's variation in dosing, whether it's 25 or less, people just, and also the providers listening to
and I have
an
extensive section on excelmail.com. Excelmail.com is a forum. It's not like Reddit, but it's more organized than Reddit. But we have we have folders in that forum, and one of the folders is called Clinical Use of Anabolic Steroids, Clinical Use. So we have subfolders, and one of them is all about nandrolone. It's actually called All About Nandrolone. So the clinical data on nandrolone, off-label uses, in a table, I summarized like perfectly. Clinicians love this. There are doctors on my site actually learning from the site.
Which is, again, a very interesting space because it's, in some way, it's very niche, but it shouldn't be. And I believe that the reason it's niche is because of the immense stigma. And it's done a huge disservice to medicine in general, to muscle mass and medicine in general, because it is much easier to lose body fat than it is to build muscle.
Oh, yeah.
And we have to come up with strategies we have exercise and diet, and that's great. And we have things like high fem technology and blood flow restriction. We have various ways, but I've yet to see anything as impactful as anabolic agents, for example, in the face of a wasting syndrome. Can diet and exercise all you want, it's still tough.
Or you can eat ice cream and mayo. That's what they used to tell us.
It's very difficult.
Oh, go ahead and
eat. It's very difficult.
Yeah, calories. Lean mass requires an extreme intervention.
And I want to point out something else is that there's testosterone. There's an androgenic to anabolic ratio. And testosterone, while is amazing, seems to be much more androgenic, meaning you'll see side effects in women depending on the dose, whether it's acne, hair growth, all of the things, whereas something like nandrolone is more anabolic and will target skeletal muscle mass more robustly. Yeah. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. There's an anabolic to androgenic ratio for every product, every androgen, every anabolic steroid, measured in a very strange way. But back in the 50s, they actually were able to measure that in rats. The molecules were changed for two reasons. They were changed from testosterone to decrease metabolism in the liver, so that this ester will stay longer in the body. And the second reason is to increase the anabolic to androgenic ratio, to make it more anabolic and less androgenic. Androgenic is the masculinizing effects, that androgens can have in women. So that nandrolone has a high ratio, oxandrolone have a high ratio, all of them. Some of them, obviously, the orals may have some more liver issues. And that's why also I think they got a lot of bad reputations, because a lot of this data came from something called oxymetholone, which really has damaging effects on liver. We did a study here in Houston at my clinic. I had a clinic called Body Positive. Funded study that we had to stop because of liver enzymes went up like fast with that product. So that product is FDA approved, but
what was it
we don't
FDA
use
approved
it
for?
Anemia mostly, but it's too strong of a. It increases. It's all metabolized by the liver, unlike oxandrolone, which is metabolized in the renal tissue and liver. That's why it's less impactful on liver function. So. There's some, and oxymetholone was the one that gave that bad reputation.
And what's the other name for oxymetholone?
Anadrol.
Anadrol.
Yeah. So Anadrol also makes you moody, and so all this
And is that considered illegal Is Anadrol
No,
illegal?
Anadrol is FDA approved. It's just that very few prescribers prescribe it because we know it has more side effects. We did a study, we had to stop it. We had money to do a study, and we stopped it halfway because of safety issues.
And people are probably thinking, okay, well, there's the normal sex hormones, bioidentical hormones. This is not that, right? These are compounds that are not made within the human body, but are close to testosterone.
Yeah.
And close, these are various compounds that are very close, but not the same. Because people are probably thinking, okay, well, is nandrolone made in the human body? It's not.
No. They're modified molecules. For decreasing metabolism in the liver and for improving anabolic effects. Those are the only two reasons. And testosterone, obviously, testosterone is an anabolic agent for men and women. It's just that it has more androgenic side effects.
Has more side effects.
Yeah.
What would the next major anabolic agent be? We can move to oxandrolone now.
Oh, okay.
Do you feel it's not a quiz? Do you feel that we've covered nandrolone?
Yeah, and people can read a lot more. I have easily 60 pages on nandrolone on excelmail.com. And by the way, I call it Excel Mail, but women can also find information there.
There's 28,000 women on there.
Yeah. I should change the name, but it's a catchy name that I came up with. Anyways, yeah, we have a lot. People can find out more. They can Google my name, Nelson Vergel nandrolone, and I have a bunch of articles.
And not to worry, we have all friends. We will put all of this so you don't have to rush, and we will make sure we get that to everybody.
But I do like oxandrolone a lot. It's because it's oral. The anabolic to androgenic ratio is even better than nandrolone.
And the name is
Anavar, which is a bodybuilder.
Which many physicians will not prescribe nowadays. And you can discuss.
I can discuss that, yeah.
Again, some of our physician friends will and some will not.
I'm more than happy to discuss because I really believe somebody has to clarify the whole thing. But anyways, it was approved. It was actually created by several pharmaceuticals back in the 50s. In the 60s, and it was not used. Basically sat on the shelves. Nobody really used it. It's an oral anabolic.
In the 50s? No one used it in the 50s?
No, it wasn't really. It was kind of, Several actually abandoned it. And this company that got really smart called BTG Pharmaceuticals, I was a consultant back in the 90s. After seeing our first data on nandrolone and wasting.
Oxandrolone or nandrolone?
They saw the data for nandrolone.
Nandrolone.
And they knew that there was this other compound that had been approved before. And the thing about oxandrolone, it was approved beautifully for an indication of treatment of unintentional weight loss due to illness, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. So really was an indication related to increasing weight in people with unintentional weight loss. It couldn't be better as an indication. It really is. So they picked it up, increased the price, did a study on HIV, got it approved, got it orphan drug status.
What is orphan drug status?
Orphan drug status is, and I can talk about it because I've worked on this a lot for HIV also, is drugs that are investigated for less than 200,000 people in the United States. People with complex diseases, genetic diseases, small populations under 200,000. That's an orphan drug gives you the exclusive rights, extended patent protection. You can actually charge a lot more money because it's a smaller population, and it gives you more protections, and it gives you tax incentives as a pharmaceutical company. The FDA actually has a whole department that supports companies that are doing orphan drug research with orphan drug status. So it's a faster way to get approved. It is a smaller population.
And it's for a specific indication? Is that
for a specific population?
Population, not indication.
An indication, yeah, because you can move from indication to indication. Populations may be different as long as it's under 200,000. 200,000 people with HIV, 200,000 of multiple sclerosis, 200,000 or less of COPD, as long as 200,000 or less. So BTG Pharmaceuticals did that, and they got it was called oxandrolone, the brand name. And it got popular in HIV. Why? Because it was oral, no injections. Nandrolone you can inject once a week. This is an oral every day. Women, the data on women look beautiful. I was part of a study where we had women take 10 milligrams and 5 and 10 milligrams of oxandrolone with
For
great
how
results.
long?
For 12 weeks. We cycle oxandrolone for 12 weeks.
Is there a reason?
There were some concerns since we didn't know any better about long-term liver issues, although every anabolic, every androgen, including higher doses of testosterone, they decrease HDL, the high-density lipoprotein, which is, supposed to be the better cholesterol. What most doctors don't know is that androgens, in general, also decrease lipoprotein A, which is one of...
I actually did not know that.
Yeah, most people don't know that. I should write more about it.
We did a whole episode with Christy Ballantyne.
Androgens decrease dramatically.
LP(a)?
Yeah, dramatically. And that's something that I think I should do a better job on bringing that out.
And for the listener, LP(a) is it's a lipoprotein that is a risk factor. It's considered a genetic risk factor. Majority of the time, it doesn't change it. I think it does change in women depending on hormone status. But I did this episode with Christy Ballantyne, the former president of the Lipid Association, and we did not talk about androgens. And from my knowledge, I didn't think that there was any medication that could.
I'm going to post a few things. I'm going to send you yes. And we have actually, obviously I'm going to say something else here. We're
going to make sure we edit that part.
Discounted labs, I own a company that actually provides affordable lab testing to people around the United States. We provide the doctor's prescription so people don't have to see a doctor. But anyways, I've actually run lipoprotein A on myself and friends that using testosterone or nandrolone, and it's dramatic. Baseline compared to week 4th or 6th, dramatic changes. So people say, testosterone and anabolics are bad for lipids because there's a decrease in HDL, but there's also the huge decrease in triglycerides.
Is there a way to bring up HDL, and is that necessarily meaningful?
Yeah, good question. I was hoping you didn't ask me that question because it's very complex, but very hard to bring HDL up. Niacin, maybe, but
that doesn't
work. And studies are kind of conflicting.
But is it meaningful that it would be
low?
Well,
we have only 1 or 2 studies where they use agents to increase HDL, and they did, but actually mortality did not change. So their jury is still up. I would not go into that side of the conspiracy or whatever it is to say HDL is useless. But we only have data on products that increase HDL and no benefit in mortality or longevity. So the fact that anabolics decrease HDL by maybe sometimes 20%, is that significant? I don't know.
Thank you to OneSkin for sponsoring this episode. I bring sponsors of products that I personally love and use. I first became obsessed with OneSkin because of one of my girlfriends. Her skin completely transformed, especially under her eyes, which I definitely have issues with. And I wanted to know what she was doing. And it was OneSkin. I've always had issues with texture on my own face, and I've tried 1.5 million different products. I landed on OneSkin. It's really helped me personally transform my skin. I've been using their face broad spectrum sunscreen, their eye cream, their topical body supplement. I actually need more of that. It has a unique, clinically studied peptide that helps with DNA repair. You can get 15% off your OneSkin with the code oneskin.com, and the code is Dr. Lyon. That's 15% off OneSkin with the code Dr. Lyon.
All I know is that they decrease triglycerides dramatically. They decrease lipoprotein A. LDL depends on the dose. So on the lipid side, and you can run a whole lipid profile with like cardio IQ.
Totally, we do it all the time.
Or,
I don't know if you know this, but we have a full concierge medical practice.
Oh no, I know that. I know that.
You
are on top of everything. I mean, you wrote books.
No, it's
you
my
have podcasts.
team. No, I have a great team.
No, I know. This is all like you know all that stuff. I'm just like
no. It's the listener really needs to understand that these are. It's not just one point. So it's not, okay, your testosterone is up. Now we've impacted your HDL, which is down. But it's this spectrum of what is your vascular health, LP(a), LDL cholesterol, ApoB. These things all ride hand in hand. The Anavar or oxandrolone. So is Anavar black market name, or is that because again, you hear in the bodybuilding space.
Yeah. I tend to discourage my audience to use either the word DECA or
is
or
it
antibiotic.
because it?
Yeah. I mean, those are bodybuilding terms. If we want to move this field forward, we need to let go of all that branding. Besides, they're generic. We shouldn't be calling them by brand name.
It would be the equivalent of calling a Band-Aid. Wait, what is the name for a Band-Aid? It's a bandage? Bandage.
See?
Shouldn't call everything a Band-Aid.
Or a copy, a Xerox, a copier.
There you go.
We shouldn't be associating those brand names anymore. Anyways, but let's say oxandrolone. Okay, is oxandrolone available? Is it legal? Is it...
Why would someone use it? It's an oral agent, you said, between 5 and 10 milligrams
for women
a day for 12 weeks. And that would do what for them?
Increase lean body mass.
Skeletal muscle or all lean mass?
Lean mass.
So that would be liver and...
Yes, but yeah.
Whatever.
All the data we have on DEXA is obviously lean mass. The ones in
and
DEXA.
Why are we saying this? We are saying this because we're not really great at measuring skeletal muscle mass directly. Lean mass includes everything except for...
I believe everybody that has access or can buy a DEXA should get a DEXA.
Yeah.
And there are companies now providing cheap DEXAs. I just got a DEXA for $70 here in Houston.
Amazing.
DEXA scan, which is the only way to really find out how much lean mass, fat mass, and bone density you have in every part of your body. And you can Google DEXA, whatever city you're in. DEXA Fit. There are a few companies that are doing that without a prescription, thank God. Anyways, because that's really the only way to find out what your body composition is. We used to do BIA analysis.
Oh my God, yeah.
But BIA is water dependent,
Yes.
So anyways.
I still like BIA depending.
Well, it's easy, and you can do it
3
in
to
your office.
5%
You can do it in your
error rate.
office.
Yes, I can.
You don't need a $400,000 machine. So it's we used to do most of our data on wasting was BCM, body cell mass from BIA.
Oh, fascinating.
DEXA back then. Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah. But anyways, I'm getting digressed. I'm so sorry.
We are forward regressing to oxandrolone.
Yeah. Okay. So it was approved. Obviously, it was used till a few years ago. The pharmaceutical company, the last one, because it's changed hands 3 times, dropped it. Nandrolone was dropped by Organon 2 years ago. Pharma said, no, not enough money on this, or whatever it is, maybe their own stigma. And then compounding pharmacies. That's how compounding pharmacies came into my life, because they took over and said, we'll make it for you, because people in HIV were actually freaking out that nandrolone had been dropped.
And why did they drop it?
They had no reason. There's no safety issues, nothing. They just decided. It's a market probably decision. So obviously compounding nandrolone. Oxandrolone, the same thing. 2 years ago, the company dropped it. Completely just dropped it.
They did issue something January 2023. Was it 2023 where they said...
but the FDA said it was a safety issue, and they referred to a 1984 meeting.
Okay, let's clear this up now.
And that 1984 meeting was really established to come up with the Anabolic Steroid Control Act. That's the beginning of all this nightmare.
Okay, so this is a little conspiracy theorist, and we're going to talk about it.
Not really conspiracy. It's no conspiracy.
No, I know. But basically, many providers will not write for oxandrolone because of safety issues, alleged safety issues. So if you were to go to UpToDate, it'll say June 2023, maybe 2023, we are issuing a warning against oxandrolone for liver toxicity.
Yes.
And many of the providers were like, well, that sucks because this was helping treat postmenopausal women for sarcopenia. This was treating bone density. This was helpful in injury. Mm-hmm. This is helpful in adjunct treatment for obesity. And what you're saying is they determined that statement. Why would anyone do that based on a 1980 study?
1984. Yes. They have no data. We have a lot of data. Actually, I sent a letter to the FDA summarizing all the data, safety data, because they're all public, on all the studies done on oxandrolone. And even in pediatrics, they didn't see substantial. It was, in some cases, liver enzymes like AST and ALT will go up temporarily.
AST and ALT,
yeah, temporarily. And then will resolve to baseline after stopping, because these things are not used continuously. That's something else that most people don't understand. We cycle oxandrolone, for 12 weeks, gain all the benefits that we can. work out, eat well, all this stuff, and then we move on. This is not a constant long-term use in pediatrics, in women and men. Nobody does that. Well, some people may do it, but so to actually say, and only to have that reference, 1984, which was a discussion, a meeting, not even a study. None of the studies have said that oxandrolone is liver toxic. None of them. They also say minimal liver enzyme or LFT elevations that were resolved with treatment cessation. So there's nothing like that. This is basically one person at the FDA. Not going to say the name, although it is on the notice.
Don't say the name.
That actually had the stigma. The pharmaceutical company dropped it, and she actually added that statement. And the only reference she has is 1984. The drug has been used in many studies since then. All kinds. Kids, women, men, HIV, non-HIV, COPD.
So now what do people do?
Well, compound is not removed from the do not compound or compound list. So it can be compounded. Once again, nandrolone is compounded because Organon left it. It is compounded. Empower Pharmacy makes it. It's legal. It's not removed. It's still on the list that it can be compounded, at least now. If they remove it from that list, the activist in me will wake up again and activate all my HIV patients that actually will be behind this. Because we have good data. We use it in HIV a lot, and we're taking liver toxic HIV meds with this.
It's wild. It's wild. How many times a year could someone utilize an oral agent like that?
Just 2 cycles of 12 weeks each.
And what would they expect if you were on a very low dose for, let's say, for women? So you have tens of thousands of women on, in your forums. If there's a 5 milligram or 10 milligram dose,
I would assume those women are exercising.
Yeah.
Both
let's just make
resistance exercise and cardio.
Yes.
They do. Otherwise, you're wasting your time.
Yes.
And eating more of a high protein.
Never heard of that, but sure.
But let's assume.
Yes.
Because otherwise, really, why even take anything without doing it the way you comprehensively? They would increase. They would probably become more lean.
Do we have an idea of how many pounds of muscle?
It's
not linear,
in the data
right?
I've seen, it's 3.5 kilos. Everything in clinical is kilos. How many is that?
2.2, multiply that
That's
by...
like 8 pounds or 7 pounds of muscle. You know how hard it is to get 7 pounds of muscle.
I do. As a matter of fact, I've been trying for...
Oh no, you're lean and you're in the perfect shape. Obviously, we all have to have.
I paid him to say that, guys. Slipped him a 10.
You're the muscle expert, so.
So they took it off. They didn't take it off the market, but they issued this warning, and then really all physicians, for the most part, stopped. Would you say that most physicians stopped prescribing it because of that statement?
Most physicians stop prescribing it because they don't know it's available in compounding from compounding. Because and that I am trying to get the compounding pharmacies to be more. And you can Google compound oxandrolone, Empower Pharmacies there on their.
But they shouldn't take. And if someone is listening to this, they should not be experimenting with any of these things. Well, first of all, I believe in body autonomy. I believe people should be able to do what they want with their body.
Me too.
Also, I do believe that you should be under the guidance and the protection as much as possible of a physician that you trust and have a relationship with. It is not a new doctor every time you go to the clinic. That is one thing that we have set up very strict in our clinic is you have a provider. You see your provider because they get to know you.
And the history.
They
remember your history.
Of course. They need to know your favorite color, what kind of dog food your dog likes, whatever it is. But so if you are listening to this and you're thinking, you know what, I have been struggling with perimenopause, menopause, I cannot put on muscle to save my life. I want to try an anabolic agent. Please do not go online and try to purchase something on your own without the guidance of a physician. I think that's a terrible idea. Would you? Unless you are desperate.
Well,
but even then, right? We do not live in the same. We don't live in the same world that you actually survived in your 20s.
And the hardest thing, and I have to add, the hardest thing right now is access because people don't know where to go. And that really is the biggest barrier. And I see it online on my forums. People, the main question they ask is, hey guys or ladies, I'm having this issue. I can't find a doctor, or the ones that I have found dismiss me or tell me it's all in my head or whatever, or don't want to prescribe. Where should I go? Or that's the number one reason why people come to groups online, Reddit, everywhere. And that's when people say, hey, I'm getting it from this doctor, that doctor. So doctors are out there. It's very difficult, I say, unless you know how to access, let me just add one more thing I have to do.
Yes, of course.
Google has changed. Google in the past 5 years has changed dramatically. When you Google anything, the first page is full of ads. And you don't get, like my forums used to be on the first page. Now they're in the third page. They have moved all sites that are not paying for ads to the second and third page. Things that were in the first page 5-6 years ago. Believe me, I've been on the internet since '94, and I paid,
right when it started.
And I pay Google for ads for discounted labs. So people are not finding those groups right away, and they obviously nobody clicks into the second or third page of a Google search.
I do.
Well, you do because you're a researcher, but most people want to find their results here. I say to people, always search inside Facebook, because there are groups galore. I belong, I run 4 that are discussing daily. Always, Reddit is, I know people think Reddit is crazy. Google just bought Reddit, by the way. But Reddit is a good source. Google there or Reddit search there, women and men, Excel male, obviously. Because if you go through Google just to find a doctor that prescribes oxandrolone or whatever, you're not going to find it unless that doctor is paying for ads.
Yeah, and also I will say, if you guys need referrals, always contact our clinic. We have doctors that we trust, that we can refer you to. Also, isn't there other search engines that are not VPN? I was just on the Sean Ryan show, and if you look at his YouTubes, you will see all kinds of ways around any kind of blocked access. So he's probably a good resource.
Maybe DuckDuckGo.
Like DuckDuck. Yeah, that's what my husband uses.
I use Perplexity. Okay. I want to plug Perplexity. I'm not getting paid. Perplexity is an app.
We're not plugging it.
Not plugging it.
I have to use it first. Don't
Perplexity,
try it.
if you listen, maybe I could ship like Perplexity is better than ChatGPT. You can download the Perplexity app. And you can ask. Perplexity goes into detail.
I can't comment on the quality of that yet.
Well, yeah, you will. But even I shop on Perplexity. I don't use
Sign
Google.
me up.
I don't use
ready.
Google searches.
Okay.
Anyways, we're digressing again.
No.
So what else are we?
I want to know if there was a difference between. We talked about nandrolone. We've talked about nandrolone in men and women. Primary component of that will be it is more anabolic. Nandrolone. We'll start with nandrolone. Nandrolone is injectable. From your perspective, anything above 150, I think there are various numbers in the data. It's typically 50% of a male testosterone dose for a man. And for women, again, typically for women, it's 1/10 of a. So if testosterone is, say, 100, then maybe it would be 10 milligrams of nandrolone. Again, it depends if you're a provider listening. Obviously, we're not giving medical advice, but I think the exploration is to always start low for individuals. An individual could stay on nandrolone as opposed to cycle something like oxandrolone, from my understanding.
At low dose, yeah.
At low dose. Oxandrolone is taken orally. Had a little issue in 2023, still available. The clinical indications are FDA approved for anything related to muscle loss, right? Is that what it is?
Unintentional weight loss due to illness, and there are like 5 commas after that.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Which would have a bigger impact on body composition? Which would make you leaner?
No, oxandrolone.
Oxandrolone?
Yes.
The oral agent. What about the dose for men?
For oxandrolone?
For men, yeah.
We studied 20 milligrams a day in HIV heavily, and it was good enough.
20 milligrams. And for the perspective, HIV is a highly catabolic state.
High catabolic state.
I mean, you're talking about...
And back then we had viral load.
Holy cow.
We did not have a control of the virus. The virus eats up lean body mass, muscle mass. It really, the immune system, when it activates fighting a virus, it needs nutrients. And where do the nutrients come from? They come from muscle. So that's why the more muscle you have, the more chances for longevity.
And we see that with cancer, actually. You have something like 260% greater risk of death if you go into cancer with sarcopenia.
And aging, like, sarcopenia due to aging.
Yes.
Yeah. But anyways, on oxandrolone...
20. So you were saying 20
I think
milligrams,
it's more
which is
lean.
low. Yeah?
Yeah. 20 milligrams is what we studied. Compounders are making up to 50 milligrams, one pill. So, but the higher the dose, there are two consequences. HDL, the reductions are bigger, and some liver enzymes. Let's talk about liver enzymes real quick.
Oh, I'd love to.
There's good data on the effect of exercise, resistance exercise on increasing AST/ALT. And some doctors don't know that, and they freak out a little bit, and they don't know it's due to the resistance exercise program that this patient is going through. So, because I sell blood tests, so I've seen for 10 years what's happening on that world. Something else that doctors don't know, nandrolone testosterone, for instance, that if you use the wrong testosterone test, nandrolone will be picked up as testosterone.
Tell me more about that.
There are two types of testosterone tests, immunoassays, which are cheaper, faster. The ones that have been used for many years, they're still used because of that, cheaper and faster. But they get interferences. That immunoassay, anything that is androgen-like, that is like testosterone, will pick it up as testosterone. So a nandrolone, testosterone.
In a blood test versus a urine test, right? So this is...
Yeah, you do urine, huh?
So our clinic, we do free total, we do...
But
we don't do that.
if you do liquid chromatography / mass spectrometry, which is the only thing, I sell that test for $40. Then you pick up what testosterone. So the nandrolone, sometimes I see that where doctors are using the immunoassay and obviously getting a 2,000 nanograms of testosterone result and freaking out, hey, your dose is too high, when in fact you're picking up, like for instance, biotin, which is a supplement that men and women use for, there's conflicting data, for hair growth or hair loss, also affects immunoassays. It's picked up and either decreases or increases depending on the thyroid or testosterone.
Yes.
So there's supplements that can affect the test results.
Can someone test for nandrolone directly in the blood?
No, that's only used in sports. That's non-clinical but research-based. Yeah, but they do use it in the Olympics and yeah.
But one would also expect to see a decrease in FSH or LH in women for suppression. So if we
haven't talked about that. Yeah, all anabolics or androgen testosterone basically shut down your hypothalamic, pituitary, gonadal, which is ovaries or axis. So you basically stop producing testosterone, stop producing LH and FSH, sperm production decreases dramatically, ovulation is affected.
For women. So if you are wanting to get pregnant, this would not be the
one of the things that, that's one of the side effects that have to be managed the best, especially in younger people that want to have kids. And that's when we can talk about HCG and clomiphene. But I don't know if you want to go into it, but I'm more than happy to.
We'll have you back on to talk about that. But the
fertility is definitely impacted.
Fertility is impacted. And also if a woman is in perimenopause, menopause, if you shut down her FSH, LH, you're not really going to be able to see because estrogen, can be all over the place. It just, again, if you're trying to identify where you are, just keep in mind that if you are using these agents, even testosterone will decrease FSH and LH. Nelson, you said something really interesting about liver enzymes, and AST, ALT, we do see occasionally go up during intensive exercise. And oftentimes people that don't treat athletes or people that are very active, they might get concerned. Physicians might get concerned. And also, to be fair, we're not talking about 2.5 times baseline liver enzymes. We're talking, might bump up into the 50s or so. And I'm sure you see that a lot.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the concern I have sometimes when, like you said, doctors are not really familiar with, the athletics and people using other compounds like this, like anabolics. It's the fact that exercise can be, an influence on AFDs, liver enzymes, but there's also another test that I also sell on Discount Labs because it's a good test. It's a test that really tells you precisely if you have liver toxicity. Besides bilirubin, which is another one, it's a GGT, and most doctors don't even use that. When they see an increase, let's say 20%, 30% beyond baseline, they just discontinue the treatment.
The medication.
Yeah. And in fact, you should go a little deeper before you do so, especially with androgens, and do a GGT. The same thing with kidney function. Most of the athletes I know, including myself, I take it daily. They're taking creatine monohydrate, which has been shown to all kinds of benefits. And creatine can increase eGFR, which is a measure of kidney function. And doctors freak out too, without really running another test like cystatin C to see whether or not it's influenced by supplements. So there's a few studies I've seen where physicians or the researchers have decided to stop a treatment based on just AST or LFT or EGFRs.
And that's where I'm glad that you're bringing this up, because there is this idea of indications for disease. Physicians are trained to look at patterns of blood work because typical disease patterns will show up in a particular way in blood work. And then there's this interesting aspect of those that are in the athletic population or people that are moving their body a ton or have higher muscle mass. You will see those individuals have higher blood level creatinine. And what I hear often is patients will come in and say, oh my gosh, I'm nervous, my creatinine is high. Well, your muscle mass is high. Your creatinine should be high. And the way that you get a really good picture is you run something called a cystatin C, and then you'll get a corrected GFR. So if you are out there and you are looking at your own blood work and you are worried about your creatinine and your kidney function, please take a deeper dive. And also, if you are looking at your standard liver enzymes like AST or ALT, one could also do something called a GGT or a bilirubin test. And I think that those are a little pearls. In medicine, we have the medical pearls for individuals that are highly active or really optimizing their muscle mass. Well, Nelson Vergel, I have learned so much from you. You really, again, you occupy a very unique place in society and place in this industry in the way that you have been there. That saying, been there, done that.
Thank you.
You have been there, done that. And it really was life or death for you. And because of that, you have advocated and saved countless lives.
Thank you.
And I also believe that your work is not done.
No.
And the next iteration of your work, I'm just going to throw you to the fire, I think has to be to bring anabolics to the public.
I agree. And I see it coming. I also see more infringement of the FDA and other regulatory agencies on compounding access of compounded products. HRT may be affected in the future for women. Hormones in general, there are 11 hormones on the list that may actually be stopped from being compounded.
Really?
So, yes. And obviously that's another topic we can talk about in another podcast. But I'm preparing my activist efforts to activate all the groups I have, the thousands of people that are following on my groups, in case that happens. Because access to hormones are, I would say, more than 60%, 70% of patients that are accessing hormone treatments are accessing it through compounded products and not just pharmaceutical grade products, because they're usually more expensive, they require more. So that's something I'm really preparing myself for, because I see it coming. Hopefully, who knows with this administration, but the access to hormonal treatments, affordable hormonal treatments may be affected by decisions from legislators that really have stigma in their heads, or also have the interest of the pharmaceutical companies funding them. So I'm sorry that I just dropped this at the end, but
well,
it is the future. It is the future that I think it's for me, at least for my work.
I will say I love that you're right on many things, and I hope this is not one of them. I hope that hormone replacement therapy and hormones in general remain accessible to the public through compounding pharmacies, which are much lower cost and just as high quality. So again, Nelson Vergel, thank you so much for coming on. We will link everywhere where to find you and all of your books and your forums. And again, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
If you're listening and found this episode valuable, don't forget to subscribe. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And leave us a comment. We love hearing from you.